Okay, so tell me a little bit about Aging Services Utah. How did it come about?
Absolutely. So, aging services in Utah started with most of the national aging services programs in the various states. The Older Americans Act, which was passed in the early 60s in the Johnson administration as part of or I guess, mid 60s, as part of the Great Society. There were a number of programs that came about at that time. The Older Americans Act is the national statute that establishes many of the programs that we think of as aging services, Meals on Wheels, senior center activities, and meals served in senior centers, in-home services, all of those sort of things. So when that statute was passed at the national level, it designated that each state needed to have what's called a state unit on aging, which is the state entity that's responsible for overseeing and coordinating aging services in the state. And the Division of Aging and Adult Services was developed or came into being at that time. And so over those 50 plus years, there have been some changes and updates, but the general structure of that has stayed the same since that initial passing of the Older Americans Act, which has been reauthorized, repassed a number of times in the years since.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, what kind of services do you provide at Aging Services Utah? Because I understand you're a part of the DHHS in your state.
Correct. So here in Utah, the division is part of the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. Up until a little over a year ago, there were two different departments. There was a Department of Human Services and a Department of Health. And those were consolidated last year, which I think has actually been really beneficial for keeping everyone on the same page and being able to better coordinate between those two former departments. One thing I need to mention in terms of aging services in Utah, and that is the role of the area agencies on aging. So there are 12 agencies across the state of Utah. The whole state is covered by one of those 12, depending on where you live, and they are county or multi-county agencies that actually administer services at the local level. So for instance, I have a lot of people call me and say, hey, I'd like to do a presentation in your senior centers. And I always have to remind them that the senior centers are actually the part of those area agencies, and so those 12 agencies provide a lot of the frontline work and frontline services that people receive. So here at the division level, we have a few things that we do here. Most of the things, however, Meals on Wheels, which are or home delivered meals, you'll also hear them called. People who have difficulty getting out of their homes and have nutritional needs, meals will be brought in. As I mentioned, senior center activities and meals served in senior centers, those happen at the area agency level. There are in-home services. We have a couple of different programs in the state, depending on people's financial situation and on their needs. We have the Alternatives Program, which is a state program to serve people in their homes, and then a Medicaid aging waiver, people who qualify for Medicaid and would otherwise need to be in a nursing home, that can be served effectively in their own homes. There is a caregiver support program, which supports individuals who are providing care to seniors, as well as supporting seniors who are providing care to grandchildren. We've seen a lot in the last decade or two of grandparents that, for a variety of reasons, are the caregivers for their grandchildren. So that program supports them as well. We have information programs. We have support groups. And again, those are run at the county level. So we partner with those county area agencies to carry out that work. Here at the department or at the division at the state level, we also have Adult Protective Services. This is the group that is tasked with investigating and resolving issues involving abuse, neglect, and exploitation of seniors, as well as vulnerable adults. So individuals who are over the age of 21, but may have some disability or some other aspect of their lives that makes them statutorily in the law considered to be vulnerable. And so Adult Protective Services works with to resolve those situations. They're all state employees that work across the state. We also have the Office of Public Guardian. So this is for adults who require a guardianship for whatever reason, and who don't have or not able to be served by family members or by private guardians. So this group serves as the guardians of last resort for adults across the state. And then we also have a long-term care ombudsman program that advocates for individuals, adults who are in facility-based care, and works with the locals and some other things as well. But those are kind of the big ones that we're involved with here at the state, working in partnership with the county area agencies on aging.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So my next question is, what kind of stakeholders do you partner with, particularly in the state of Utah?
Absolutely. So there are a number of people that we work with. Obviously, the seniors themselves and their families, those are our biggest stakeholders. We work closely with our, here within the department, we work closely with our Medicaid group, with the Division for Services to People with Disabilities, to make sure that we're coordinating with them and on the same page. There are a number of community partners that we work with. Again, our area agencies on aging, that's our stakeholder that we work closest with. But there's also the Utah Commission on Aging, which is kind of a think tank and looks at lots of ways that the state can better serve seniors and prepare for the future. There's the Utah Legal Services, which provides legal services to seniors and other individuals that may require legal services. We coordinate with them. There's the Utah Alzheimer's Association. Obviously, Alzheimer's and related dementia are big issues that we work with, particularly here in the West, where we have a higher prevalence of those diseases. AARP, the Utah chapter of AARP, the University of Utah and their College of Nursing. There are lots of those kind of partners that we work with on a regular basis that cover different elements of the aging network, and we rely on them for their expertise, and we try to support their efforts as well with the services we provide.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, what impact does your particular branch have on communities as a whole, particularly, the disability community? I understand that you guys focus on aging and stuff, but I would imagine that there are people, older adults who have disabilities.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, that's why there's a lot of coordination with the Division for People with Disabilities, and as well as the Disability Law Center, and we work with their advocates up there as well. And again, as I mentioned, our OPG clients, our Office of Public Guardian clients, in many cases are also members of the disability community, and our Adult Protective Services program investigates for seniors, but also for people with disabilities, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We also sit on the Governor's Developmental Disabilities Council and interact with, participate there, because as you point out, obviously we're tasked with helping people that are age 60 and older here in the state, but there is a lot of overlap in terms of services and needs and opportunities with the disability advocacy community. Another one that we participate in that I think has a lot of impact on both seniors and people with disabilities are we're very involved with the Utah's Urban and Rural Specialized Transportation Association. And this is a group that represents transportation, human services, transportation providers across the state in working to make sure that those providers have support they need. Often they're very small groups that are providing rides to seniors and people with disabilities, often in many cases providing to both of those groups at the same time. And so being able to better coordinate with the local mobility managers and with transportation providers to be able to better serve both those clienteles and receiving access to transportation services that are critical for doctor's appointments and shopping and just living life in generally. So a lot of overlap between both of those communities.
My last question is, how do you create an inclusive and welcoming environment for everyone, particularly in the aging sort of realm in your particular branch?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the advantages we have that helps to facilitate that is the Older Americans Act itself, which is the federal statute that we are, most of our services are under that umbrella at the federal level. There is a lot of emphasis placed on making sure that we're reaching the individuals most in need of our services, with some special emphasis on members of Native American tribes, people who speak English as a second language, minority communities, and individuals in poverty, and really putting an emphasis on those within our funding formula that we use to distribute funds across the state to the various area agencies on aging. Those are factors that are highly weighted in that process to make sure that the funding is going to those areas where the people most in need of those services and most likely to encounter those services are, so we can reach them. But I think also, you talk about making an inclusive and comfortable place. I really take my hat off to our area agencies on aging. So much of that kind of frontline work happens at the senior center, and making those centers welcoming, inclusive places where seniors and visitors feel included, feel respected, and feel heard, and that their needs are being met, that there is an opportunity to provide feedback. Each of our area agencies on aging is required to have an advisory committee that kind of provides feedback on services, with an emphasis on individuals in that community and that are users of those services, to be able to make sure that we're meeting the local community's needs and wishes, and that individuals have an opportunity to make themselves heard, and to make sure that the services we're providing and the manner in which we provide them, that they're helpful and comfortable and useful to people, and that they can receive those in a way that respects their particular situations, and make sure that they're comfortable in those settings.
Cool.